Coffee stay black, just like me. Don't need no sugar, don't need no cream. Coffee stay black, just like me.
Cxffeeblack is an emerging social enterprise that seeks to bring back the intersection between black history and black coffee. Did you know that coffee is the second most sought after commodity in the world, right after oil? It's worth an estimated $100 billion a year. That's big stacks, family. That's stacks on stacks. Modern coffee culture is immersive. Baby seeds to morning cups, farmers abroad to local roasters, the global product both makes the world run and brings people together. But the lesser known reality is this: coffee was swindled from Africa in the 16th century. And at Cxffeeblack, we believe black communities re-engaging in coffee is both a means to reclaim a stolen destiny and build generational wealth within the diaspora. Yo, what up? It's your boy Bartholomew Jones. I know it's been a while. It's been crazy. We just got back from Atlanta. We had a crazy experience there. Met a lot of really dope people. Beautiful things happened in the black coffee community. But I came on today because I want to talk to you guys about something. If you're watching the video, you can see I'm wearing this shirt. It's our African Gold shirt. It's one of the first pieces of apparel we did. And the story behind this hoodie is actually kind of corresponding with something that's going on in the news right now. So if you look at the hoodie, these are for sale on our website, by the way. The first country on this is Ethiopia, which is where pretty much everybody in the world agrees coffee originated, which is in Africa. The next country here is Yemen, and we haven't talked that much about Yemen because I really wanted to just communicate to you all the story, right? So after coffee spread from Ethiopia, it moved to Yemen specifically. And that's where a lot of the coffee cultivation happened. And I think it's important here that we note that this is a collab, right? I'm a hip hop artist. If y'all know me, I'm an educator, I'm an MC, and I'm a coffee nerd. Part of being an MC and what being MC, being a part of hip hop culture has taught me is the beauty of the collab, or as we call it, the cipher. It's when multiple people bring their ideas, and even though the beat may start with one individual, normally the beatboxer, like the idea spreads and it grows as it moves through different people's experiences and their culture and their lived life, right? So look, that's what's happening with coffee. Coffee moved from Ethiopia to Yemen. It was transplanted there, I believe. But the thing that's interesting about this is that plants don't necessarily follow rules. And so all of nature is moving these things around. And the region oftentimes can be or the regionality of a plant can be controlled, not necessarily just by human actors, but also by animals and lots of other things that happen, the wind even, right? Water. So coffee grows in this region of the world in Africa, right? Started in South Sudan, even to Ethiopia, to now Yemen. Yemen is going through a crisis. There is a humanitarian crisis unlike really anything we've seen in a long time there. And there's a big need for coffee to be propped up in that community. There are, multiple generations of farmers in Yemen right now, like father, son, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grand. I mean, we talking 6-7 generations of coffee farmers who, may be in danger of losing an opportunity to really continue to grow coffee in their family simply because of how difficult it is to export, in addition to the lack of accessibility to the coffee. And there's something in the news right now that is showing there may be a new varietal of coffee found in Yemen. Now, before we move forward, some of you may be saying, okay, Bartholomew, what is a varietal? Think about this, right? You got apples. We all grew up eating apples if you grew up in the hood because they had them at school. And there were a couple different apples, right? You had the red apples, the green apples. If you got lucky, you got the yellow apples. You know what I mean? The reason why those apples are different colors is because they're different varietals of the same plant. All apples, but different colors. And if you really peep game, they have different flavors. Again, yellow apple is the best. That's just my personal preference. Let me know how you feel, but the point is the varietal can affect color. It can affect taste. It can affect texture. It can affect a lot. This is true for all plants. All plants have different varietals. So coffee, like other plants, has different varietals. There's varietals like, there's two big ideas. First, you have Arabica and then you have Robusta. Those are the two largest families of coffee. Most of your instant coffee is going to be Robusta, although there is currently a conversation about bringing Robusta coffee into kind of the specialty world and doing single origin Robusta. That's actually in Vietnam right now. Like there's a big situation where people are pushing Robusta coffee. I want to try some. If you have some, send it to me. Next is Arabica, which is mostly your specialty grade coffee. A lot of times if you're in the grocery store, they'll market and saying 100% Arabica. That doesn't really mean very much. It just means like it's one of two families. And generally, Arabica tends to taste slightly better. But again, like even that conversation is changing because people are saying, that might be kind of racist, right? In the sense that a lot of these countries that go Robusta tend to be poorer, darker, and people tend to say that these coffees are not quote unquote as good. But in reality, like all of these things are made by God, right? And we know no sugar, no cream. Every note is important. And so there's a big conversation to push that forward. In Arabica, there are lots of different varietals, right? So you can have Bourbon Arabica or Arabica Bourbon. You can have Caturra. You can have something called Geisha, which we're going to get into. It's so many different varietals. Each of these varietals have their own unique flavors, right? In Ethiopia, generally what they have is called the heirloom varietal, which just means it grows in the wild. But the interesting thing that's happening in Yemen right now is that we're seeing Yemeni coffee may have one undiscovered varietal that actually holds, it's not even a varietal, it's really a family within the Arabica strain. I guess that's the way we could say it. It's a family within the Arabica strain of coffee that may hold hundreds of different varietals. This is crazy for a couple reasons. Okay, the first time that a new varietal was introduced in recent history was the Geisha varietal. The Geisha varietal was found in Central America. Long story short, someone did what we all know has happened if you've been listening to this podcast. They went over to Africa and stole some coffee and then put it somewhere else. That stolen plant was ignored for a long time until one family decided to cultivate that stolen plant and put it in auction, which if you don't know, all coffee seeds in each growing region of the world are essentially put into these auctions called cups of excellence. People cup or taste the different coffees. And if you don't know about cupping, you should check us out. Every week we cup coffee with some of the homies on our Instagram. But yeah, it's a way to taste coffee and kind of get the best idea of the potential a coffee has. And so this geisha was put into this cupping in Central America. It did extremely well because this is a coffee that's almost directly traced back to Ethiopian heirloom varietals, which tend to be like fruitier. That's why we sell Ethiopian coffee to you guys, because we want you to understand the origin of how coffee can taste, right? This coffee did crazy, did super well, but I was listening to a podcast and this individual, James Hoffman, who's like a coffee nerd. If you're a coffee nerd, we listen to, a lot of us listen to James Hoffman. He was having a conversation with someone from Kima Coffee, which is a Yemeni coffee importing company that really wants to better their country and their community through coffee, right? They discovered this new varietal called Yemenia. And as James Hoffman and the individual from Kima Coffee were talking, one conversation came up that I thought was really interesting. So I'm going to play that for you guys.
Well, Geisha is a difficult story because one, it is a variety taken from Ethiopia and provided no value back to Ethiopia in its, I guess we can say theft, but we can just say taking it for now. And it was tested in Costa Rica and it spread.
Yes.
The Petersons benefited from La Esmeralda producing this astonishing coffee that got bid up at auction and just built this name and its brand. And long-standing value to producers was quite high, whereas if a producer grows Geisha, they can ask for a higher price that is disproportionately higher than the cost of production or the decrease in yield compared to a Bourbon or typical kind of coffee plant. With Yemenia, how do you think about retaining value for farmers in Yemen for what is theirs?
Okay, that's a good question. But I think the question that we're not asking is, how do we think about returning value for what was taken? Let's be honest, what was stolen. Anyway, let's talk about it. So if you heard that, it was interesting, the kind of trepidation around whether or not it was stolen, even though it obviously was one, interesting. But two, what was interesting was the idea that the coffee Yemenia has the potential to have a similar effect, and therefore those who are exporting it and introducing it to the world need to take extra precautions to protect it, because we don't want what we call Grand Theft Java, which is the theft of coffee, either in 1616 or from the Dutch conquering of Sri Lanka, and then the transplantation of it to the Java Islands and what is now known as Indonesia, and then the colonization of those people and the creation of coffee plantations in those spaces, and then that coffee being grown in Indonesia and dominating the world market and creating this huge $100 billion industry, blah, 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 blah. We don't want that to happen again, right? And I think it's important to have that conversation. But one thing that I thought was like, okay, going back to the conversation about geisha, it being this new, very African tasting coffee, but being grown in Central America, it getting tons of money at auctions. And I mean, if you're a coffee nerd, we've paid $12 for an 8-ounce cup of geisha. Like, it's crazy. Even $20-$30. I've paid 50 plus, 60 plus, on birthdays. My wife has bought it for me for, an 8-ounce bag of beans. So people pay a lot of money for geisha. But one thing that James Hoffman brought up I thought was interesting is that this money is not affecting the people who it was stolen from. And he kind of danced around it, but we coffee black, so we're gonna step on it. We're gonna 8-town stomp on it, right? That's wrong. That's wrong. Okay? The question of not just how can we protect current varietals that are being discovered in Yemen, which I think need to be protected because that has the potential to totally transform the economic structure of that country. Those farmers are really compensated for what we know the coffee can pull in the market based on what happened with geisha. But also, how can the money that's been stolen be returned, right? Like, I'm not saying, the Tupac saying, right?
I'm standing outside trying to sing my way in. You know what I'm saying? We are hungry, please let us in. We are hungry, please let us in. After about a week, that song is going to change to, we hungry, we need some food. After 2-3 weeks, it's like, give me all the food, breaking out the door. And after a year, and you just like, I'm saying, I'm picking the lock, coming through the door, blasting, you know what I'm saying? It's like you hungry, you reached your level, you don't want any more. We asked 10 years ago. We was asking with the Panthers. We was asking with them, with civil rights movement. We was asking, now those people that were asking, they're all dead and in jail. So now what do you think we're going to do?
I'm not saying we got to do all of that, but I am saying, like, what if we were to intentionally platform countries, growers, and people groups who have been excluded due to colonialism? What if we were to intentionally make decisions as consumers to give our dollars back to those peoples, right? And that's the heart of what we want to do at Coffee Black. That's why we exclusively serve black grown coffee, is because we feel like Africans have been excluded from the lion's share of this thing that of the market that has been generated on the back of a stolen good, right? And the same thing is true for Yemeni people, right? Like, this thing was stolen literally from the port of Mocha in Yemen. And though there's debate about whether or not that initial seed made its way all the way to Indonesia, we do know that eventually the individuals who stole that seed were able to find a seed either from there or probably Sri Lanka again, and transplanted to Indonesia, which cut off Yemen's ability to have control over the export, and also cut off the potential for Ethiopia to get in on that, and for Sudan to get in on that. And then, as my brother Steven Zinnerman, who's going to be joining us today, we have an amazing guest, as he's going to say, even other African countries which may have indigenous coffees of their own. And when we say indigenous, we mean growing in the wild outside without anyone coming and planting it, right? Just God put it there. That was his intent when he planted all the plants where he planted them, was that this plant was going to grow with these people and they were going to be able to cultivate it, discover it. You know what I mean? So look, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. I welcome my brother, Steven Zinnerman. My brother.
Yo.
What up, my G?
What's up, man?
What's up, my guy? This is going on the podcast, so let me make sure I introduce you to everybody. So
Yeah.
I know people on IG know who you are, but I'm here right now. My name is Bartholomew Jones, CEO and founder of Coffee Black. I'm an MC, educator, and coffee nerd. I'm here with one of the guys who I look up to the most in the coffee game. Call him my coffee brother. You know what I mean? It's deeper than coffee with this dude. Steven Zinnerman, owner of or co-owner, co-founder of TCE, a brewing company. TCE
Yep.
stands for the Coffee Enthusiast. Steven, man, tell everybody a little bit about who you are before we get started today.
Yeah, man. Again, like you said, I'm Steven. I am part owner of the Coffee Enthusiast, a brewing company. Um, hey, man, we started out in New Jersey, man, just doing church events, serving coffee. We started off with Ruby Coffee Roasters, man, and
yours truly.
Thank you, bro.
ventured out to start roasting on our own. So we started roasting in the basement, bro.
Ooh,
Of
come
my
on now.
mother-in-law's house
Roasted
in
up the
Woodland, New
basement.
Jersey. Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
On a little B-more 1600 plus, and just wanted to get good quality coffee out there, man, to the people, and just really try our hand at something that we could feel free, that we felt connected to ever since childhood. You know what I'm saying? I started off pouring coffee for my dad, who was in the Marine Corps. You know, he drank a ton of coffee. He was a DI, which is a drill instructor, in the tank battalion. He was second Marines, and
Yep.
you know, Devil Dogs drink a lot of coffee, man. So that's what me and my brothers and sisters just kind of competed,
Mm.
um,
Mm.
pouring coffee for my daddy, man, and seeing who could make the best cup of coffee. And every time I won, man, I just felt good. And no matter what I, try to connect myself to outside of coffee as a kid and as an adult, it just kept bringing me back to it. I
Okay.
mean,
Something
it
keeps
just kept
bringing
calling me, bruh.
me back, saying that I
Yeah.
need you in my
Hey,
life.
yo, listen, that song came out when I was in college. I think I was either a sophomore or junior in college when that thing came out, man.
Bro,
That's
people
that's
sleeping on
crazy.
Chingy. Hey, so you know that
Hey,
like it's pandemic. People been doing the whole versus thing. I saw
yeah.
somebody say Chingy versus Chameleonaire. I don't think Chingy got the catalog to go head to head with
Nah,
Chameleonaire.
maybe Nelly or something like that.
Yeah, they already did
Just
Nelly though, didn't they?
because
Didn't they do Nelly?
I don't know
Yeah,
if
I think
they
they did
did. I
Nelly
don't.
versus like versus somebody. I can't remember who it was, but I think they did do Nelly.
They
I think it
probably
was
did, man.
Nelly versus like
But
T-Pain or something like that.
yeah, that sounds comparable.
El Mero, what up? So, look, a background right now, I'm sitting at El Mero Taco where my homie, my partner, my business partner, Kenny Baker, is doing his first
Kenny
pop up.
Epnos.
Yeah, so I got 2 coffees from him right now that are actually pretty important for our conversation. One's the Ethiopian, it's a Guji, a natural, and then this
Yeah,
one is actually a Yunnan coffee, which
out of China.
the connection that we're going to talk about when we start talking about West African coffee.
Yeah,
But let's get into the conversation because Instagram has this timer on what we're going to be talking about. So
yeah, man.
recently, Barista Magazine dropped this article, and James Hoffman also did a video about a new family of coffee that is. Sorry about that. A new family of coffee that's being reported on in Yemen right now. And if you don't know,
Yep.
Yemen is one of the birthplaces of coffee. You got this stretch of land in northern Africa. And also, as my brother will talk about, even now we see in Western Africa where
Hmm.
coffee is being grown. Eastern Africa, Africa, to be honest with you. Yemen is one of the places where we see coffee first being farmed, cultivated. It grew wild in Sudan and Ethiopia. Was discovered there. And as the plant spread through, I'm assuming natural processes, plants, wind,
Yeah.
people, migration, it began to be cultivated in Yemen. So it's interesting right now because Yemen coffee is not a new thing. It's actually, that's where coffee
Nah.
was stolen in 1616 by the Dutch. If
Hmm.
you've read the back of our bag, you already know about that. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know about that. What's interesting now, though, is that there's a new family called Yemenia, which
Yeah.
is possibly one of the most diverse coffee family groups within coffee varietals that's been discovered. And so the
Yeah.
reports are saying that this may be, bigger than geisha, which if you're new to coffee,
Mm.
geisha was like this discovery of this stolen Ethiopian coffee plant that was growing in Central America.
Yeah.
And it just was really rare and it was really expensive. It's like if you play Pokemon, you know what I mean? It's kind of like,
you find a
Yeah,
Charizard in a starter pack. It's like, yo, this goes for a lot of money. So that's
yeah,
how it was. But there's some interesting connections to kind of all the things that we talk about. Before we even talk about that, let's just the purpose, and I kind of already explained this to my listeners, but when Steven is one of the foremost people that I talk to when I have any questions about coffee. So Steven, when you think about coffee varietals, like how would you explain that to our community? Of what is a coffee varietal? You know, if you had to give somebody like a 5-minute explanation on coffee varietals, what that means, what are they even, so that people kind of have a foundation for our conversation.
I mean, it's kind of it's super basic, man. Like so, like we're dads, right? We have
Yes.
we
Baby
have
number 3 on the
children.
way for me.
Yeah,
You just had.
I just yeah, number 5. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So we just had our 5th varietal.
That's a great way to put it.
We just had our 5th. You know what I'm saying? So you have the mother tree, and then you have the offspring of that mother tree. So I mean, if
Come
you want
on,
to put
bro.
it down into like layman's terms, I mean, or just simple terms, it's just you have that mother, and then you have that child, and then you have grandchildren, and then great grands, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at
And
it in
each
that,
one's a little different,
yep,
but
each one's a
they
little
bear
different.
the common characteristics of the mother.
Yep, the common genetics.
Yep.
If you do like super science work, you can find that
Which you
common
actually
thing.
are.
Yeah,
You're
I am.
professionally into this. What do you do professionally for the people who don't know?
Well, I'm an environmental scientist, man.
Woo! That boy smart,
Slash
y'all.
conservationist. I'm more into.
HBCU educated.
I am. I very much so am.
Yes, yes.
Benedict College, class of 2008, environmental science, and now I am at American Public University, class of 2022, environmental policy and management. But my concentration is sustainability.
Yeah.
But basically, man, it's just the extended family of one mother tree,
So if
or
I saw somebody say
several
this in the
mother trees.
comments, right? Somebody said, for all my smokers out there, for all my hip hop heads, if you in the culture, you might be familiar with cannabis, right? What
Yeah,
up, Comeback Coffee? But if you're familiar with this thing, cannabis has strains, right? A varietal is essentially a strain of coffee. And guys, I'm sorry if we can't keep up with the comments. Like I said, this is going to end up going on the podcast. So if you have a question, put it in the little question box so we don't miss it.
yeah.
So
Shout out
people
to
have a
Keith in there, man, from Columbia, South Carolina originally. I
gang
see
gang.
you in there. Yeah,
So
man.
the basic
That's why I went to
idea,
college.
yeah, all coffee is kind of coming from Africa. That's where the mother tree is, right? It's in
Yeah.
Ethiopia. And I actually heard somebody say, well, we'll get to this. I feel like I have to keep skipping around this, but let's dive into it, right? You actually done some research and found that not even does the extent of the motherhood, we call coffee, Africa the motherland, right? The motherness of Africa doesn't just stop in Ethiopia or Sudan. It actually
Nah.
extends to West Africa. Now, I don't know anything about this, so educate
So you
myself
have
and the people on what you've been researching.
several varietals of West African coffees. A lot of them are Robusta,
Okay. Now, I
or
briefly
Coffea
told people
Cannifera.
there are basically 2 coffee mother trees. You have the Arabica tree,
Yep.
and then you have the
Yep.
Robusta tree. But can you
Yep.
elaborate a little bit more on that too?
Yeah, so you have those, and then you have several other mother trees of different species
Okay.
of coffee varietals. You have some, and they're weird, man. Like I'm doing 2 in general. I don't want to speak on it too soon because I haven't finished the paper. It's very very difficult to write this paper. It's proven to be more difficult than I've ever thought, and it's more difficult than any body of work that I've ever completed in my entire life, academically or independently. So it's crazy to try to connect the dots, but I'll just say this, man. Some of the fruits are being lost. Like you have Ghana, you have Sierra Leone, you have other places like Burkina, Cameroon, other parts of West Africa in general that have their own coffee varietals and or coffee species of plants,
And
and
just to
some of
be
them have been lost for
and
good,
just
and
to
some
be
of them are being conserved.
so just to be clear, sorry, I mean quesadilla.
No, you good?
But just to be clear, when we talk about indigenous coffee, Woo, that just spicy, bro. So when we talk about, but when we talk about indigenous coffee, we're talking
Yeah.
about coffee that naturally grows in a wild that was not brought by a colonizer.
Yeah.
You know, I got the Cxffeeblack like Wakanda shirt on right now, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess shout out to the colonizers. But this is
It
not
began there.
this is not a plant. Like if we think about Central American coffee, Indonesian coffee, Caribbean coffee, these are all coffees that were transplanted by colonizers. They were brought as a cash crop to be grown. They were stolen from
Yep.
Africa. However, these coffees in West Africa are not things that were repopulated, because even we see in the rush for Africa, the scramble for Africa in the 1800s, many colonizers went back to Africa and took coffee from East Africa and transplanted it in other countries in Africa, like Tanzania or like Kenya, which is where my father first got introduced to coffee, or places like that. So you're not talking about, just for so that people know, you're not talking about coffee that was stolen and then kind of taken on a world tour and then brought back to a place in West Africa.
Some of them have been, but the majority of them have not been. And reason being, for some of those varietals or those species of coffee that have not been taken from West Africa, is because there's so little of it to be found. It's very, very difficult for them to find the plants of these. But when they do find them, they want to try to keep them intact. And then some of them have left West Africa and they ended up in labs in France, labs in with the Dutch. So those are two of the players that you'll always find in the coffee industry, no matter how far you go back.
You're always going to see the Dutch.
You're always going to see the Dutch and the French,
which is crazy because the story, we're making this PDF for people to download for free, but it's basically like the two, like when the Dutch stole coffee originally. And again, there's debate whether that original theft from the port of Mocha, which is in Yemen, was the plant or the parent plant to all the coffee that was transplanted, or whether it came from them conquering Sri Lanka and taking that from Muslim countries that had kind of transplanted coffee over there. That's not really the point. The point is they're taking a plant that was intended by the people who were cultivating it only to be cultivated in Africa, right? They weren't trying to give away seeds. They were taken through force. So when they took these plants, they eventually gifted a viable plant from what they had cultivated in Indonesia to the French. And the French, then, that plant was the plant that was taken to what's known today as Haiti, and also to Brazil and places like that. So I think that's an interesting point you're bringing up. Like, these two countries were a part of the original theft. They the OGs. When we talk about gangsters, we talking about they the people who built the whole game on how to thieve the plant. And now it's interesting that now that plants are being found in West Africa, they're involved again.
Yeah, but only thing about it, these plants in West Africa, they're so old, and they're so few. I mean, there's some that thrive, and there's some in some countries.
So when you say some, like which countries?
Like in Ghana, in the northern part of Ghana.
Hey, it's the year of return in Ghana too right now. I might have to scoop over and catch a farm real quick.
It is. And the southern, I want to say the southern and western part of Sierra Leone.
Okay.
There are varietals, or I got to get that correct. There are species, certain species that are found or have been found.
What's the difference, species versus varietal? Varietals are basically the children of a mother plant. What's the difference between the species?
The species is just the plant in general, like Cxffee arabica or Cxffee connifera. But these are completely different, but they're classified.
These are like brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So that's a different. Okay, so that's interesting. So then, is there a grandmother plant?
There could be. I'm trying to go deeper and deeper and try to understand for myself a lot more and a lot better, so I can explain.
No, I feel
coffee.
You, and plus, you gonna write a book.
It's
on
such
this,
a web.
Don't give the whole game away. You gonna write a book on this. I just wanted you to introduce it. Y'all go follow the coffee enthusiasts, and just join their subscription. They have a coffee subscription.
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince my brother Steven to start a podcast because he has a wealth of knowledge, and I think people need to hear it. But y'all follow them, bro. Like, I learned so much from this brother. Definitely join their coffee subscription. They roast
Yeah.
really interesting
I was
coffees.
actually reading about the coffee that you have, the Walisho.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah.
actually reading about that coffee earlier this morning.
Yeah. So
Some
yeah, we
very
have a.
interesting things.
If you're new, we have we've been selling Gucci Man, which is a wash Sadamo from the Gucci zone. However,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the coffee we've been selling for the last couple of months that we fallen in love with is from the Binti Neka Village and
Yep.
Washing Station. We're about to get a new lot from them, which is really good. It has like the other coffee had like a pineapple, like a blackberry acidity. This coffee has more like a pina colada pineapple acidity. Really interesting. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that we have a new coffee. It's a natural coffee, not a wash, and it's the Walichu Wachu. It's from the Walichu Wachu watching station in the Gucci zone, and so we're really excited about it. You can buy it on our website. And at first, it was only available to our subscribers. We have like a brew culture subscription box, but we made it available to the public because we like it so much. But I don't know a lot about we sourced it through Mayorga.
Okay.
We purchased it from Hidasi Coffee.
Yeah.
And we've spoken with them briefly and want to get more of it.
Those are good people, man. That coffee, like a lot of it's very interesting how those coffees get passed down from farmer to farmer. And I'm not talking about from farmer to farmer like these days, from farmer to farmer, like way back from farmer to farmer. And most of them are named after trees that have nothing to do with coffee. Like that coffee is named after a tree that is not a coffee tree, but what they have in common is that they have large fruit sizes. So that particular tree has a very elongated, very large fruit that's typical to that tree, just like the actual Walisho tree or Walichu tree. And it's different. It's different pronunciations because of the three main languages that the people speak. Yep, Amharic, Afan, and
you have the
Oromo.
Oromia language. Yeah, Is it Oromia or Oromo?
You know what? I don't know, man.
I
just say Oromo.
I miss having my guy Ibrahim to talk to, but so I guess let's bring it full circle. So we found there's a diversity in all these varietals.
Yes,
but
it is.
It's not just scientific; it's also economic in that there is a monetary association with varietals, right?
Right.
And that's probably most exemplified in kind of the promulgation of the geisha varietal in Central and South America. Well, specifically Central America. Now, what's the story behind the geisha coffee for people who don't know? Basically, geisha kind of, when I heard it, I was thinking like Orientalism, like some type of racist Asian meme. You know what I mean? Like the Mulan movie just came out. So I was like, yo, what are they doing? But that's, if you're rocking with me, you're like me, that's not what people are referring to when they say geisha coffee.
So geisha is a place or a village in Ethiopia. I'll just say an area in Ethiopia where that particular species or varietal of coffee was taken from, and it was grown all over the place. So it's been in Guatemala, it's grown in Colombia, it's grown everywhere. Costa Rica, it's grown everywhere. And one of the most well-known geishas that I've ever heard of to date has been grown in Panama. Which was the one that I tasted in 2018 was Hacienda La Esmeralda in Panama. That was a geisha that went for $601 per pound at
and
the
just
auction.
For background, if you're new to coffee, like the coffee that I got from the homie Jonathan's uncle in the back of a storage unit in Atlanta. The dope deal. That coffee was $385 a pound. Okay,
Jesus.
So $385 a pound versus $601 a pound.
Yep, $601.
Yeah, man, like that's premium dope.
Yeah. So you got that, and then Clatch Coffee Roasters, they bought it. I think they bought most of that lot, and they offered it in several different ways. But if you wanted it by the cup at their cafe or cafes, you're gonna pay like $55 a cup for that coffee. And then you could do the thing that I did, which was buy it was like a special pack. You get like a little cup, and you got a certain amount of grams. And it was $77.
bro.
and you got like a couple of something. You got like 2 cups out of that coffee. You didn't get a
Fam,
lot. Yeah.
fam. Now, when we talk about this type of economic markup, just based on basically a favorite child of a mother plant, right, or a mother tree, you have to start looking at how much of a markup is fair to the farmers. And I think there's 2 different farmers we're
Right.
talking about. We're talking about the original farmers who sold it, and I believe that because they sold it at such a high point at auction, like the Finca La Esmeralda in Panama, did fairly well. But then you look at how much the roasters are allowed. I mean, there's no cap, right? In America, nobody's gonna tell you how much you can sell
Yeah,
stuff for,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
like
we go crazy.
like I remember I bought a bag of, my wife bought me a bag. Shout out to my wife, co-founder, Brown Girl Lettering. She does all graphic design, and when I was really nerding out on coffee, I told her I really wanted this geisha. I was hearing about it. It was cool. It was like 2008, 2000, maybe 17. I don't remember. It was from Steadfast Coffee in Nashville.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, she got me a bag, bro. The bag was like like 60 for maybe like 4 ounces.
Yeah.
Bro, so
That's crazy.
it was crazy. And the coffee wasn't that good. Like it wasn't
Right.
it wasn't mind blowing. For that much, I expected it to be, it just tasted like a washed Ethiopian to me.
Yo, I'm always reminded of like you already know, like I have my favorite coffee shops, both people of color and my white brothers and sisters.
Come on now. We all come from
and
Africa. If you go
yeah,
back
we
far
all
enough.
from the same place, man.
Yep.
We got the same color blood.
Got the
You
same
know what I'm
God.
saying? Yep, got the same God. So that's what it is.
Yep.
So we brothers, we kinfolk.
Yep.
But my brother and them over there at Cat and Cloud, this is what they did one time. And it was unprecedented, bro. Like nobody had ever done that before. Cat and Cloud, they offered geisha or gesha, however people want to say it. They offered gesha at cost. Like they bought gesha and sold it on drip. There was nothing special. They didn't do pour overs. They didn't do, oh, you can only come in and get AeroPress of this, or you can just get a V60 of this. They put geisha on drip, bro, and just ripped it. You can get it on espresso. You can get anything that you want at that geisha. They did it at cost. You got people like Chuck Jack or Charles Jack to thank for stuff like that, man. He has like an unorthodox kind of entry into coffee.
Yeah.
And in America, like he started off over like helping to build washing stations in Africa, like South Sudan.
Yeah.
And then went to the other side as like far as like coffee production and retail sales and stuff like that. He's a Wall Street guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they did that. Then you got Bird Rock. They actually grew geisha here in the United States, in California. Bird Rock Coffee. I want to say they sold it for like $18 a cup.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Bro, so like this brings the question of like all these coffees, you basically have an infinite markup, right? That people are allowed to do. And you have some people like Cat and Cloud who want to be more ethical and say, we just want this coffee to be accessible to anyone, so everyone can know about it. But
they're the OGs of like accessible, bro. I swear.
Yes. And I think a lot of their practices, we just did a podcast with them, and I recommended they talk to you next. I recommended that they say, who should we reach out to next? They want to learn more about, the Black perspective on coffee. I said, you got to talk to my guy, Steven.
Man.
But I think one of the interesting things is, like, and Hoffman brought this up in his interview with the founder of Kima Coffee, who is doing like kind of
that was an interesting interview.
Right. And let's get into that. He said that geisha really was stolen. He kind of danced around it, but we Coffee Black. We're not gonna do. We're gonna 8-town stomp on it, right? So it was geisha is a stolen Ethiopian coffee varietal, or strain of coffee from Ethiopia, and Ethiopians receive no financial kickback from any of the sale of that. And that's wrong. Like I'm glad that it's providing a way for a lot of Central American farmers, of course, who also oftentimes are a part of the diaspora, the African diaspora, to be able to access that. Is good they're able to market their coffees, but the issue is not that geisha is being valued so highly, but rather that people are not willing to pay for a product which essentially has infinite markup. They're not willing to pay a fair price to those farmers.
Right.
And specifically to those black farmers who are oftentimes thieves. And what we know about the diaspora is we oftentimes have our creations, whether it be music or coffee, any of our discoveries, art, mathematics, whatever you want to talk about, they're stolen and then repackaged and then sold to the masses, right? And
Yeah.
we oftentimes
Right.
end up on the bitter end of that spoon because we don't get any of that financial situation. So even in Ethiopia right now, we have a crisis. In Yemen right now, one of the worst humanitarian crises
Yeah.
in the world. And yet these coffees oftentimes can be marked up and those farmers don't participate in the game of the sale of their
Yeah.
product. So how do you
Yeah.
make that fair, right? Like what does reparations look like in coffee for a situation for something like Gesha? Like, should there be
Man.
a movement to like donate a percentage of the markup, and whose slice that comes out of? That's a question. I think we
Right.
have to be willing to think about these things, or we're going to continue to perpetuate the same structures and the same patterns that have been initiated from colonialism. You know?
Yeah. I think that there should be there's something that has to be done. I just can't really think of what it could be.
Or so here's an idea. So what if, because geshas are worth so much and it's essentially an heirloom Ethiopian,
Yeah.
does that then raise the value and the cost of all Ethiopian coffee?
I think it should.
Right, because if we're saying this coffee being grown in a different location is worth $600, the same
Yeah.
plant in Ethiopia, and even when people talk about geishas, like there's less of an excitement I notice in coffee nerds when they talk about an Ethiopian geisha from the geisha area of Ethiopia. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of not as interesting. I'm like, why? This is where it's from, and in my opinion,
Yeah.
those are often the best tasting geishas.
I think
Are the ones that are directly from that village.
I think a lot of Ethiopian varietals, and this is just me, I don't know how anybody else feels. I think a lot of Ethiopian varietals in general get downplayed.
They do, bro.
Like Wush Wush, for example. Not just Wush Wush, but you got so many of them. I mean, Edito,
Yep.
downplayed. Wush
Yep.
Wush, downplayed.
Well, at least you watch them.
Yes, downplayed.
Yeah.
I mean, you got some of the most diverse coffees that I've ever tasted in my life. Nothing can taste like them. You can definitely get a great coffee out of Guatemala. You can get an awesome, like, Hunapu.
Right.
You can get a great coffee out of Honduras, which is like the varietal is Para Anima. I always go back to that one when I think about Honduras because it was one of the best coffees I ever had from the farm of Damian Chavez, who Cat and Cloud, once again, went and almost bought all of this man's coffee and offered it up. You know what I'm saying? And then they bought the man another piece of machinery for production. You know what I'm saying? They developing relationships, but in a way that was not so neo-colonial, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They just,
and I think the question comes up is what makes it neo-colonial, and I think the thing that makes it neo-colonial is when the profit is more of a priority to the company than the people are.
I think it's it's the profit and it's your intentions behind. You know what I'm saying? Your relationship with this person. Or whatever, which goes back to the profit again.
The identity of whose is it, right? Like I think part of colonialism is the stealing and the stripping of identity, and then allowing that stripping of identity to then rebrand and then add economic value in the rebranding versus the actual reality of what it is. And so like I think geisha is a great example where the rebrand of this somehow has all of the economic power versus the actual substance of what it is. Like if what it is an Ethiopian coffee, but the rebrand of this now all of a sudden is more valuable. And it doesn't say, hey, don't pay these farmers for their hard work in cultivating the geisha, because they have to work very hard to do that. But what it does say is if the rebrand is worth this much and the rebrand is just a colonial spin on this thing, then this thing actually is worth this much too. And so then we have to rethink how much we're willing to invest in the reality.
You took the words like right out of my mouth.
That's supposed to be brothers, bro.
Then this is the question.
Yeah.
How then do we well, not us, but us eventually.
Yeah.
But how then do the good brothers and sisters from Yemen price their coffee, the Yemenia versus Gesha? And they talk about, and then they kind of talk about unseating or dethroning geisha in a sense when it comes to quality, like taste,
Yeah, and I think that brings up
and
a good
possibly
point.
even price.
Well,
Like, what is that going to look like?
bro, it's so many points because on one hand, I do think geishas get overhyped as far as taste. On the other hand, I'm like, get your money, like get your money, man. Like if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
selling
yeah.
a geisha and that's what you plan it because you know you're getting a bum end and people won't pay you for basically the same thing because it's a bourbon. Then grow the geisha, get the money, do it. Like I want, like if that's how the market is working. But what it does make me think, is like, yo, okay, so what does it look like? Because essentially what we have is the opportunity or the potential for what happened in 1616 to happen all over again now, where this new varietal is being grown and people can rush in and steal all the value away from the producing class, which is the Marxist in me coming out, you know what I mean? But the producing class, the people who have the means of production, it could potentially lose. And I think Kima is doing an excellent job. I think they're working really hard to keep that from happening. But
Yeah.
in keeping that from happening, what does that do for all the farmers who have now invested in geisha, right? As a way to kind of get more value, get more bang for their buck. What does that do for these farmers who have been spending years growing young geisha trees? And if Yemenia comes in and kind of upsets the market, now do all of these farmers, and I think all of these farmers who are just about to harvest their Yemeni coffee trees, are they is it kind of like too bad for you guys? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. I don't know what they think about it. What I
well, how
would
does it
say, I
affect
think
the market? You know, is it going to change the demand for this? Or if
I think
people
it
say like
would.
we can find the geisha varietal
I
within
think it's gonna
Yemenia.
trend. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna trend, man. Like how a lot of things do, man. It's gonna trend. It's gonna be huge,
Yep.
or pretty big for a little while, and then it may or may not. It depends
Yep.
on the quality. It
Yep.
depends on the roaster. The guy who's gonna sell to the end user.
Yep. And how that
What is he going?
presentation happens.
Yeah, how is that experience going to happen for the people? What are you going to make that experience, be like for folks?
Yeah.
And then on the other end, you got the farmers who are farming geisha from Ethiopia all the way to Central and South America. That turns them. That turns them to what. That's going to make them look at what their best practices are. Like, what do we
Yep.
do now
Yep.
to make this geisha more unique? Are they going to start, processing geisha a different way? Are they going to start doing the
Bro,
carbonic maceration geishas?
and I saw
You know,
that with Black and White just sent a carbonic maceration geisha, I believe, or anaerobic process geisha, which we can talk
right?
about what those terms mean. Those are basically just using some of the processes they use for wine on coffee to make the flavor
Absolutely.
even more complex. But the point
Yep.
is here, this is the point that I think from a production standpoint, the producers always lose when you have to chase trends. Like
Yep.
when the demand is on a trend and not on the product itself, then
Yep.
the producers are always going to be chasing demand around. They're going to be chasing these trends, and you end up, because coffee is a crop, right? It has to be grown, takes years and years. You
Yep.
end up on the back end of a trend, right? That can be the difference between life or death
Yep.
for a family, right?
I was just about to say for an entire family.
For a whole village. And so I think like the question then comes to, what does this mean for, let's say, African Americans? Because I try to have our conversation
Man.
for Africans in the diaspora who want to participate in coffee because we want to, one, become knowledgeable about a part of our heritage as people who
Right.
kind of practice or engage in Pan-African history, but also we want to help our
Which
brothers
it
and sisters in the
definitely
diaspora.
is.
It is, right? We also want to help our brothers and sisters in diaspora with our financial practices, like with the coffee that we purchase, or if we have a company that we sell, trying to intentionally partner with people to help.
Yeah.
Like, how do we then purchase? How do we move as people in the diaspora? Like, does that mean that we intentionally try to support like Yemenia coffee, geisha coffee, while also purchasing other coffees? If we're roasters, does that mean that we offer to pay more for these coffees, or we buy the coffee but then make it accessible to our communities who, that many people are just curious to know, what does it taste like? They don't even really want to get into it for the.
Yeah, that's going to be a difficult thing. Like, so
Yeah.
I've been in coffee well, working in coffee since 2014.
Yeah.
And
OG.
of course, I'm
OG in this thing.
kind of.
Yeah.
You got some
Nah,
other folks that's
get your stuff off, bro. They gotta put respect on your name, bro. You've been in this thing for
man.
a minute.
I've been in it for a little while, man. But you got people, man. You got people like Ezra Baker and Michelle Johnson. You got
Yes. The OGs,
Deanna,
OGs.
yeah, Deanna
Phyllis Johnson.
Stubblefield, and yes, Phyllis Johnson.
Whew.
That's the only name
Yeah.
that you drop. You know what I'm saying? You got you got other upcoming women, and
Cute
men.
Coffee. Yeah.
Cute. Oh man, yes.
Come on, y'all.
You
I
got
love Cute
them.
Coffee. You got my brother Paul down in Mississippi. He was one of the first people I met at Bean Fruit Coffee. You know, he's been a mentor for me for a minute. So it's a lot.
You got
of
a lot
people.
of folks, man, that I look to, man. And then I mean, just not people of color, but you got people like Charles Babinski.
Yeah.
You got You got Kyle Ramage. You got Lim Butler. You got
Come on,
bro.
bro.
Jared Truby, Chris Baca. You got all of these people.
It's
bro,
a lot of folks.
So I try not to step on no toes.
Carlos,
I always pay homage to you know what I'm saying, to the folk. You know what I'm saying, that
Sierra.
these are the folks. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
These are the folks that I came in wanting to be like in 2014.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, watching their videos, watching WBC. But
so
how
do we participate in like lifting?
It's a hard question, bro.
Reversing, because when we talk about reparations through coffee, I know a lot of people have visions of like people storming coffee warehouses. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making intentional consumer choices to support people who you want to see benefit from the production line or from the production chain that don't benefit as we think they should. And because Black people are the genesis of coffee, we feel like they should benefit more than they do. And so we're not trying to take money away from anyone. We're trying to take the money that we have as consumers and people in the diaspora, specifically in the first world end of the diaspora. How can we build our businesses on partnering with these people intentionally when other people may overlook them? So does that mean when everybody's selling these kind of trendy coffees that we're intentionally partnering, like, with Afro-Colombian people or, Africans who live in Brazil who are going, like, does that mean we're intentionally doing those things? Like, what does that look like,
Oh, man. It's that, and it's so much more, man. And it's actually, it starts right here where we are right now, like on this podcast / livecast. You know what I'm saying?
And just having a conversation.
Yeah, having conversations and collaborating and learning from one another. That's one of the things that we have to, do. Like learn the back end, which is the beginning of the coffee. I call it the coffee trail, or the coffee supply chain. You know what I'm saying? Like learn about exporting and importing. Learn about husbandry, or what it takes to produce coffee on a farm. How long it takes those people to,
which I think that's a conversation
all
we
of those
have
things,
had,
man.
like so many African Americans or Africans in the UK or just Africans in the diaspora in the first world, we've lost our connection to agriculture. We've you know what I mean?
That's funny you say that, man. I was just talking to my wife, not to jump off subject, but I was just talking to my wife about my grandfather and my grandmother about their practices, their agricultural practices, not just with plants and trees and things like that, but just with like farm animals, like hogs. And because I'm originally from Georgia.
Yeah, bro. And my
folks,
grandparents are from Alabama. They had a farm too.
Exactly.
It's like 2 generations ago, we were agricultural people. What happened?
Yep. I don't know, man. We college, college, and us wanting to
globalization, the internet,
all of that, man. Technology. I mean, it just a lot has happened, man. And I don't think it's something that's old. I think throughout the history of the world, man, people have slowly, because if you even look at some of the old movies, man, sometimes a lot of the older or the elder people in those movies, man, one of the first things that they come out of their mouth is like, how the young people don't want to do this anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like small things.
Yeah, bro.
So I think it's just a way that things happen, which is kind of unfortunate, but you have that small group of people who take a step back.
Like, bro.
People like ourselves.
Or people like the brother from Kima, who's like trying to step back and contribute to his heritage by bringing his knowledge as a college educated gentleman back to the agriculture. And I think that's what we have to. My mother couldn't do even though my mother comes from the red clay in Alabama,
Yeah.
like she couldn't make a decision to start a company to elevate the agricultural practices of her parents because the internet didn't exist like that. She just had to go and get a job. And she, you know, she graduated summa cum laude from University of Alabama, so she's killing it. Like
That's what's
even
up.
your parents couldn't have made the decision to go back and empower their parents' farm because the market, there wasn't a way to market it to a scale we could all
Yeah.
sustain ourselves because people were growing and harvesting food globally as opposed to locally. But
But you
now,
know what?
yeah,
Another
what's up?
thing is, and I hate to say it like how I'm gonna say it, but
Say it, bro.
it's the most simple thing. People back then didn't make shit look cool. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
bro.
Like
And if there's one
that's what
thing we
people are
can
all
do,
about. Like the shit
we
that
can make
makes
shit look
it look
cool, bro.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people who make coffee look cool tend to get, you know, the following of folks that want to step into that realm
And that's the
and
power we have
change their career.
as people who are a part of hip hop culture. Hip
Yep.
hop culture determines. I was just listening to the Joe Budden podcast. He was quoting Charlemagne, who just started a Black podcasting network with iHeartRadio, and it's just basically saying Black people determine what's cool. And I think if we take our artistic cultural capital and combine it with our agricultural capital, we really have the power to
Yeah.
create something that nobody's ever
Yeah.
seen before. You know what I mean?
That's why I never stepped away from my roots. Like my
Yeah.
grandparents heavily
Yeah.
influenced my path when I went to college. Like, yeah, I could have went to college and studied computer science or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But that's not what I come from. I come from the environment.
Yeah,
I
bro.
grew up watching them collect rainwater in 55-gallon barrels around the house.
Wow.
I grew up around them composting when I didn't know what the hell composting was.
Like, what is that?
I used to just see them throwing our banana peels and all kinds of other things in this big pile and letting it break down over time and then putting it with the garden, making compost tea. That's what I watched my grandparents do as a kid, and it just heavily influenced me. I grew up walking around in the woods, you know, messing around with my grandfather's rabbit traps. You know what I'm saying?
Man, it's real.
And him conserving plum trees and pecan trees and muscadine vines all over his land.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to step away from that stuff. So that's why I majored in it. And that's why I feel like it's a responsibility of mine, not as, you know, just a Black man, but as a man in general, as a person, a human being, child of God, to
come on
take care of what he gave us.
If anybody asks me, y'all, say who
you know what I'm
I
saying?
am. Tell them
that's what I'm supposed to do, man.
That's
Coffee
real.
is no different. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Just like me and my son. My son, he asked me, he was like, "Daddy, we got all this green coffee." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Didn't you tell me that coffee beans are a seed?" I was like, "Hell yeah." I didn't say that.
Bro.
But I said, yeah. So he said, "Can we grow it?" I was like, "Let's just see."
So
what we did, we took some green coffee out of one of our buckets that we had some coffee in.
Yeah.
I want to say, matter of fact, it was the Benti Nenka natural. Threw it in some water, let it soak for 24 hours, and I'd be damned if it wasn't a little sprout coming out of that coffee.
Bro, that's
in
beautiful.
24 hours or so. We planting Benti Nenka right on our back porch.
Come on,
you know
bro.
what I'm saying?
Dude, so this is the
he
perfect...
has that. You pass it down.
Yes, this is perfect. So what would it look like? And this is where I want to end our conversation because I don't know when, you know, you get the time.
Yeah, they're going to do the little countdown.
What would it look like for us as specifically West African descendants of the diaspora to then go and try to elevate and uplift the story of West African coffee and begin by partnering with those people to share that story and that heritage to the world using the advantage that we have and the thing we can bring to the community or to the village, which is social media, which is e-commerce, which is hip-hop culture. You know, both of us are MCs. We're both songwriters and artists. We have this ability to communicate culturally and artistically, as well as could be the value of the good, right? The value of the crop in that way. What would it look like for us to partner in that way? You know what I mean?
Man,
with specifically West African coffee.
That would be, man. Like, I mean, the two of the species that I'm studying right now, trying to continue to write this paper on, that's going to be part of my capstone for my master's degree.
And then a part of your book when you publish it.
I'm going to write that. I'm going to write that book.
Brother. Yes.
I receive it.
Yes.
In Jesus' name.
Amen. In Yeshua name. Amen.
I'm going to write it, man. But this coffee has been said to taste even better than the Arabica species.
Bro, I
So
just want to
I'm
say,
like,
can I rap at your
what?
book opening? When you have your book release party, can I
Bruh,
rap? Can I open?
man, you can rap, you
I'm
can
trying to do
host,
Black Like Me. I'm trying to rap
man.
Black Like Me one time. You know what I
Bruh,
mean?
and it's weird because you say black like me. One of those coffee cherries of that particular species that I'm studying, the actual fruit is black. Like,
Woo!
it's black.
Okay, what is the
The
name of the
skin of the
strain?
fruit.
What is the
I
name of
can't
that strain?
hold on. I don't because I don't know how to pronounce it
Okay, because
well.
if it's called
I hate.
Cafe Negrabica, I'ma laugh, bro. I'ma
No,
laugh.
no. It's not. It's not Nicaragua. It's not that. But it starts with an S, and it's just like a real. I'm not good at pronouncing the Latin,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
the
Why is it in Latin?
species.
Why is it in Latin anyway?
Why is it? Yeah, I always wanted to know that.
Come
Like,
on,
why is it
bro.
in Latin? But it's two of
Anyway,
them, bruh. And one of them, the one that starts with an S, that and it's actually disappearing more and more and more because of compaction, not necessarily climate change, but landscape change. So you
and
have
you
lots
were
of
telling
growth
me
going on over there.
right now I'm drinking a coffee, and the espresso in this coffee is my brother Kenny's coffee is from Yunnan, and you were telling me that some of the coffee
China.
growing in China right now is actually West African coffee.
Some of it is West African of the Robusta species, which they
Yeah,
might have gotten from people like in Vietnam. Not sure. I don't want to speak that on them, but
right.
possibly. And then you
More
have some
research
East
should be done.
African. Yeah, more research to be done, but of course, they got
That's
some
gonna be chapter
from East
12 in the
Africa.
book. Yeah,
Yep, we're gonna do that. Chapter
yeah.
7 and 12 will be will be
Right.
about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got some from East Africa as well. And
But you have countries going into West Africa right now who are seeking to buy up those
oh yeah,
varietals and transplant them.
yes they are.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I'm
what can
trying
we
to
do
think of
about
the
that? Like,
doctor's name. We
can we participate in the buying of that, or can we
yes we
invest
can.
in communities that so that they can keep it themselves? Can we
I believe we
move?
can.
I'm trying to get land in Africa. Like, can we move and like help with what can we do?
I believe we can. We have to reach out. That's the first thing that you got to do. Like you got to
Yeah.
reach out. Like
Who
one of
will
the
we reach
connects
out
that I
to?
got. Um,
Are you talking about the one that rhymed with Snacky? You talking about that connect?
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
you gonna let them? You gonna let them know about that? I don't know if
I'm
you
not
want to let them
gonna.
know. Don't let them know about
I'm
that.
not because I want to be stingy or a gatekeeper or nothing
Nah,
like that.
I'm just
But
saying that you don't just drop connects like that. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I don't want to name drop it. I don't want to have people flood this man's email
Yeah, I
with
feel you.
requests. But he's grown from a small farm in East Africa to other farms in East Africa, and he has a connection to West Africa as well. I need to check in with him. He is an elder, so you got to check in and show your respect to that brother.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. But there's a doctor that I have to cite. As a matter of fact, I have to cite him several times in my paper. Um, he knows some of these farmers in general, so
Yeah.
I need to reach out to him
Hmm.
to get some names of farms and farmers and maybe email addresses or something. I don't care if I have to write and send it or throw it in a bottle and
So
just
look, what would it
throw it.
look like for us, Black coffee professionals, me, you, let's say the homie Hector from Don Calvert Hall. He's
Hmm.
from the Dominican Republic, Black brother in New York. Me, you, him. I don't know, Sierra. I don't know, but I mean, some of these folks got more money than I do. So,
Man,
but
I ain't got
come
no
on,
money.
bro. That's why I'm trying to sell these shirts. Y'all go to the website coffeeblack.com, join the
Yeah,
subscription
man.
service, and buy a couple shirts.
Buy
And
some
go
shirts,
join.
buy some
Yeah,
coffee.
join the coffee enthusiast coffee subscription so they can get that dependable income. But listen, what would it look like for us to do some community,
I
some
got a
group
bee in my face.
economics? Yeah, what would it look like for us to do some group economics and reinvest back in the motherland through coffee? Like, is that
Man,
a thing we can do? We can say, okay, I couldn't individually buy a whole harvest, but maybe me plus you plus a couple other brothers and sisters, we can all come together and purchase a lot, and then we can sell those coffees through our various companies and help to elevate the notoriety, through our ability to communicate through hip hop and social media and
man,
all these things.
that would look great, man. That would look awesome. And that would help with black and black relations. You know what I'm
And
saying?
it would also keep it from being colonized, because there's a danger of it being colonized again.
That's true.
And the plant
But
being taken all around the world.
we gotta be consistent. We can't be trendists.
Yeah.
If we're gonna do something like that, we gotta do it.
Yeah.
And that's just that, man. That's the bottom line. You gotta do it.
We should look and see
we can't let up.
We got to see how, because it needs to be every year, right? Because it can't just be a one-time thing. So I need to see how many shirts. This is how I think in T-shirts. So like we're doing this scholarship for a performing arts scholarship right now, for a kid to get free performance, because performing arts lessons, private lessons, for a year. And the reason for that is because Chadwick Boseman played, obviously, Black Panther. He just passed, and his career was funded by a charitable donation from the diaspora, from Denzel Washington. And so we're like, man, that movie was the genesis of our company, bro. Like our company, like literally, coffee is real world vibranium. And seeing that movie changed everything for the potential of creating diasporadical change through one substance grown in the motherland. So anyway, Denzel Washington helped start our company just by that one investment. And so we're like, can we pay it forward and make one investment in one of the youth in our community? And who knows how that will impact someone else. But we want to invest in their artistic change. So like, I'm thinking in my brain, I need to sell 67 shirts for us to sell 10% of each shirt to put aside for this brother or this sister, like, or this individual. Okay, cool. So that's 67 shirts a month. So I know that number. So when we think about buying co-ops and filling up a container or 2 or 3, how many shirts is that? Like, could we collaborate on some merch and then have people buy into that merch, pre-order it, then use the profit from the pre-order to flip into like a group container? I don't know.
Man, I got so many ideas. Like you thinking T-shirts, I thinking bags of coffee, man. Like how many bags of coffee do I need to sell in order to donate 10% or 15% to that same cause?
Yeah,
you got fine arts school right here in Fayetteville, or we can just send the money to y'all, and we can just see if we can double it.
Bro,
you know
that
what I'm saying?
So
double it. We can see if we can triple it.
Bro, and maybe we can get some people to donate too. But I think we can do the same thing. There's a lot of potential, y'all, for us to create change, and we don't have to wait on other people. We don't have to beg folks for their money. And I think that's one of the things, that we don't have to go around begging and pleading from the world to create the change. I believe, in the scriptures it says we have everything we need for life and godliness. He has given us everything we need for life and godliness. I think we have enough. My man Kanye said, we have everything we need. Ooh, 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 ooh. And I agree with my man Kanye on that. I don't always agree with Kanye, but I do on that.
Nah.
So, man, let's use what we have. Though. Yes, bro. Thank you for your time, my G. I'm not gonna hold you. I got 2 quesadillas that been calling my name. I started eating one, I almost died. I ain't gonna do it. But where can people find you, bro? Where can they support?
Hey, man, right here on Instagram, man. TCE_A Brewing Company.
It's the underscore between the A and the brewing.
Yeah, and the A and the brewing. You can hit us up, www.tcecoffee.com.
Yep.
We are getting ready to drop.
Please join their subscription.
Yeah.
That means they get money every month for the work they want to do. And if you one-time buys are good, but we saw with the whole like support black businesses that happened earlier,
that whole trend that dropped off.
A one-time purchase helps, but it doesn't help sustainably. So if you want to help, join the subscription. That's monthly income. You know what I mean?
Definitely. We source our own coffee. We buy our own coffee. We roast our own coffee, and we ship it to you. Right now, we're getting ready to start back with roasting kickback coffees, continuing that with Brazil Natural for everybody who donated to the fundraiser.
Whew.
I'm ready to drop a new coffee.
I saw somebody talking down on Brazilian coffee, and they need... Yeah, I saw somebody talking down on Brazilian coffee, and I feel you, because originally I was like, I'm not impressed. But Brazilian coffee can slap. You just gotta, again, when you brew better, come on now, somebody, you'll do better. So,
listen, this thing it's like cherries and honey roasted peanuts, man. It's just,
you got to give the coffee the attention,
crazy.
Both on the brewing side, but also on the roasting side. But also, if the farmers are not getting enough money to live sustainably, a lot of times the coffee taste suffers. But if we're actually giving the people growing the coffee, what they need to be able to give that coffee the attention it needs, all these...
You see what happened in Brazil earlier, man. Them brothers was chopping down young trees too. They was like, nah, if we ain't getting the money, y'all ain't getting this coffee. So
Yep.
they started chopping that stuff down earlier, man.
Yeah,
But
bro.
yeah, man, they can come get this coffee, man. We getting ready to drop. We decided that we're gonna put the Benti Ninka with 16th and Locust. So if you want to taste the Benti Ninka, you can purchase 16th and Locust from our website,
Yes.
tcecoffee.com. And that's it, bro. They can hit us up, man. Follow us on Instagram. We're on Facebook, The Coffee Enthusiasts, a brewing company.
Yeah.
And that's it, bro.
Yeah, family. We love you guys.
Love you too, man.
See you guys soon. And stay.
Coffee stay black, just like me. Don't need no sugar, don't need no cream. Coffee stay black, just like me. Black like me, 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 black like me.